The noose waited in the morning light, but Catherine Blake didn't come to the jail to plead for mercy. She came because the man in the cell was the only one who'd told her the truth about how Sheriff Marcus Blake really died. Rain hammered the tin roof of Redemption's jailhouse as she stood outside the barred window, her black morning dress soaked through, clinging to her trembling frame. Inside, Jake Thornton sat on the wooden bench, wrists still bearing rope burns from his capture 3 days prior. He didn't look up when her shadow fell across the cell floor. "They say you murdered him," Catherine whispered, her voice barely audible above the storm. "They say you shot Marcus in cold blood over a card game." Jake's gray eyes finally met hers, and she saw something there that made her breath catch. Not guilt, but a deep, bone-weary sadness. "And you came here to spit on me before they hang me at dawn?" Before we continue with Catherine and Jake's story, I'd love to ask you to take a moment to subscribe to the channel and leave a like on this video. Your support truly means everything and motivates us to bring you more quality content like this. I'm also curious, where are you listening to this story from? Let me know in the comments. Catherine's fingers gripped the iron bars. "I came because you're the only man in this town who won't lie to me. Everyone else speaks in whispers and pity. But when they brought you in, you looked me in the eye and said your husband deserved what he got. So tell me why." The cowboy stood slowly, his tall frame unfolding as he approached the bars. Even through layers of dirt and dried blood from the marshal's rough handling, Catherine could see the hard lines of his face, the broad shoulders that had earned him a reputation as the fastest draw in 3 territories. A long scar ran from his temple to his jaw, a story written in violence. "You want the truth, Mrs. Blake?" His voice was low, rough as gravel. "Your husband wasn't killed over cards. He was killed because he tried to rape a 15-year-old Cheyenne girl behind the saloon. I stopped him. He drew first. I was faster." The world tilted beneath Catherine's feet. She gripped the bars harder, her knuckles white. "You're lying. I'm hanging tomorrow for something I don't regret. What reason would I have to lie?" Jake stepped closer, close enough that she could see the gold flecks in his gray eyes, the honest pain there. "The girl ran. No witness but me and the dead man. Marshall Johnson was Marcus's friend. He decided the truth didn't matter." Catherine's mind raced through 3 years of marriage. The unexplained late nights, the way Marcus looked at young women in town, the whispered comments from other wives that she dismissed as jealousy, the perfect facade crumbling like sun-dried clay. "Why didn't you run?" she asked. "You could have been in Mexico by now." "Because running makes you look guilty, and that girl deserves someone to remember she was innocent." He reached through the bars, his calloused hand hovering near hers. "And maybe because I'm tired of running from who I am." Thunder cracked overhead, and Catherine flinched. Jake's hand steadied hers, warm and solid. The touch sent electricity up her arm, inappropriate and undeniable. "The whole town will hate you if you believe me," Jake said quietly. "Marcus was their hero, war veteran, lawman. You'll lose everything." Catherine looked down at their hands, hers pale and soft, his scarred and strong. She thought of the big empty house Marcus had bought with money she never questioned, the respectability she'd worn like armor, the loneliness of sharing a bed with a stranger. "I already lost everything," she whispered. "The day I married a man I didn't know." Jake's thumb brushed across her knuckles, a gesture so gentle it made her chest ache. Then you understand what it's like to be condemned for something you couldn't control. The jail door burst open. Marshal Johnson stood there, water streaming from his hat brim, his face flushed with anger. "Mrs. Blake, what in God's name are you doing here?" Catherine pulled her hand away from Jake's, but she didn't step back from the cell. "Seeking truth, Marshal. Something this town seems short on. This man is a murderer." Johnson strode forward, his hand on his gun belt. "He killed your husband. You shouldn't be—" "Where's the girl?" Catherine interrupted, her voice stronger now. "The Cheyenne girl my husband supposedly wasn't attacking. Where is she?" Johnson's face darkened. "I don't know what lies this killer has been feeding you." "Her name is Pale Moon," Jake said from the cell, his voice calm and steady. "She lives with her grandmother 3 miles north of town, near the Red Rock Canyon. She has a birthmark shaped like a bird on her left shoulder, and she has bruises on her wrists that match your sheriff's grip." The marshal's hand moved toward his gun. "You shut your mouth, Thornton." "Or what?" Jake smiled without humor. "You'll hang me twice?" Catherine stepped between the marshal and the cell, her heart pounding but her voice steady. "I want to see this girl tomorrow morning before the hanging." "That's not." "Mrs. Blake, you're not thinking clearly. The grief." "Don't tell me about my grief, Marshal." Catherine's eyes blazed. "You'll take me to see Pale Moon, or I'll ride out there myself and bring her back to tell her story to every person in this town." Johnson's jaw worked. He glanced at Jake, then back to Catherine. "You're making a mistake, choosing a killer's word over your husband's memory." "My husband's memory is already dead," Catherine said quietly. "I'm choosing the truth." After the marshal stormed out, promising to deal with this in the morning, Catherine remained at the cell window. The storm had softened to steady rain, and lamplight flickered in the gathering darkness. "You should go home," Jake said, though he didn't move from where he stood near the bars. "Being seen here will ruin you." "I think I'm already ruined, Mr. Thornton." Catherine pulled her shawl tighter, though it was soaked through and offered no warmth. "I have no family, no friends who'll believe me over a dead war hero, and a house full of blood money. Ruin seems like a lateral move." "Jake," he corrected softly. "If we're both condemned, might as well use first names." A ghost of a smile touched her lips. "Catherine, I know. Marcus talked about you sometimes. Said he had a pretty wife who kept a clean house and didn't ask questions." Jake's voice held no judgment, only observation. "Sounds lonely." It was. The admission came easier than it should have. I thought marriage would feel like coming home. Instead, it felt like living in a museum. Everything perfect and nothing real. I know that feeling. Jake sat back down on the bench, gesturing to the narrow window ledge. "Spent 10 years trying to be what my father wanted. Rancher, businessman, respectable. Turned out I was better at cards and gunfighting. Disappointed him right into an early grave." Catherine found herself sitting on the ledge, despite the impropriety, drawn by the strange intimacy of confession. "Do you regret it, the life you chose?" "I regret the pain I caused good people. Don't regret becoming who I actually am." He leaned back against the stone wall, studying her with those unsettling gray eyes. "What about you, Catherine? Who are you under all that black silk and propriety?" No one had asked her that question in years, maybe ever. "I don't know anymore. I was Catherine Wheeler, teacher's daughter, then Catherine Blake, sheriff's wife. Now I'm just empty space where a person should be." "That's not true." Jake's voice was quiet but firm. "Empty space doesn't ride through a storm to face a truth that could destroy her. Empty space doesn't protect a girl she never met. You're not empty, Catherine. You're just buried. Tears burned her eyes, hot and unexpected. They're going to hang you tomorrow, an innocent man. Innocence a strong word. I've killed 12 men, all of them armed, and most of them deserving. I've stolen, lied, and broken more laws than I can count. He smiled sadly. But I didn't murder your husband in cold blood, and I won't apologize for stopping him from destroying that girl. Then I'll find a way to prove it. Catherine stood abruptly, new determination flooding her veins. I'll find Pale Moon myself tonight. I'll bring her back. You'll get yourself killed. Jake was on his feet, hands gripping the bars. Johnson knows you're asking questions now. If he or any of Marcus's friends find you riding alone at night, Catherine, please, don't throw your life away for mine. Why not? She met his gaze, searching. You threw yours away for a girl you didn't know. At least I'd be dying for someone who told me the truth. Their faces were inches apart, separated by iron bars and impossibility. Jake's expression shifted, something vulnerable breaking through his weathered exterior. Because in the last hour, you've been the only real thing in this goddamn town, and I don't want to die knowing I took that away from the world. Catherine's breath caught. Without thinking, she reached through the bars and touched his face, her fingers tracing the scar along his jaw. His skin was rough with stubble, warm despite the cold rain. He closed his eyes at her touch, a shudder running through his powerful frame. "What are you doing?" he whispered. "I don't know," she admitted. "Something reckless. Something real." When Jake opened his eyes again, they burned with an intensity that made her stomach flip. "Catherine, if you keep touching me like that, I'm going to say something incredibly inappropriate for a man in my position. Say it anyway." Her voice was barely audible. "We have nothing left to lose." His hand came up to cover hers, pressing her palm against his face. "Hang me tomorrow, but stay tonight. Stay and let me know that somewhere in this world someone saw me as more than a killer. Stay and let me see you as more than a widow. Just stay." The words hung in the rain-dark air between them, heavy with meaning and impossibility. Catherine knew she should leave, should preserve what little reputation remained, should be sensible and proper and all the things she'd been trained to be. Instead, she said, "How?" Jake glanced at the cell door, then back to her. "The keys hang by the marshal's desk. Johnson's drinking at the saloon, drowning his anger at you. He won't check on me until morning. You're asking me to break you out." Catherine's heart raced. "No." Jake's grip tightened on her hand. "I'm asking you to come inside, sit with me. Talk until dawn. Give me a few hours of something other than this cage." He paused, his voice dropping. "But if you open that door, Catherine, understand, I won't try to escape. I won't run. I'll face that rope in the morning, because it's what I deserve for a lifetime of choices. I just want these hours with you first." It was madness, absolute madness. Catherine Blake, the sheriff's widow, spending the night locked in a cell with the man accused of murdering her husband. The town would crucify her. She'd lose everything. But Jake was right. She'd already lost everything that mattered. Catherine walked to the marshal's desk, her hands steady despite her racing heart. The key ring hung on a brass hook, 3 keys catching the lamplight. She took them, the metal cold against her palm, and returned to the cell door. "Last chance to be sensible," Jake said, but his eyes held hope. "I'm tired of being sensible." Catherine unlocked the door, the mechanism clicking loud in the quiet jail. "Sensible got me a loveless marriage and a house full of lies." She stepped inside. Jake pulled the door closed behind her with a soft clang, not latching it, but creating the illusion of imprisonment. They stood facing each other in the small space, close enough now that Catherine could smell leather and soap and something indefinitely male. "I don't know what to do now," she admitted, her earlier bravery faltering. Jake gestured to the bench. "Sit, talk, be human together for a few hours." He settled on one end, leaving space between them. "Tell me something true, Catherine. Something you've never told anyone." She sat, smoothing her damp skirts, thinking. "I wanted to be a doctor. When I was young, before it was clear that wasn't possible for a woman in this territory. I used to read my father's medical books in secret, memorizing symptoms and treatments." She smiled sadly. "Marcus never knew. He thought I read romances. That's a damn shame." Jake's voice held genuine regret. "You would have been a good doctor. You have steady hands and clear eyes. You look at hard truths without flinching." "What about you?" Catherine found herself relaxing, drawn by his quiet intensity. "What did you want to be?" "Free." The word came immediately, just free. "Not tied to land or expectations or a name I didn't earn." He stretched his long legs out, his shoulder near enough to touch hers. "Guess I got that, in a way. Can't get much freer than nothing left to lose." They talked through the night, trading stories like currency. Jake told her about growing up on a ranch in Montana, watching his older brothers inherit everything, while he inherited expectations. About his first gunfight at 17, defending a friend from a drunk with a knife. How one fight led to another, and before he knew it, he'd become the thing people whispered about. Catherine told him about teaching school until Marcus proposed, how she'd convinced herself that marriage meant safety and belonging. About the slow suffocation of being someone's possession rather than their partner. About nights, lying awake next to a stranger, wondering if this was all life held. "You deserve more," Jake said, as the night deepened. "You deserve someone who sees you. So do you." Catherine turned to face him, their knees touching now. "You're not just a killer, Jake. You're someone who protected an innocent girl knowing it would cost everything. That's not evil. That's heroic." He shook his head. "Don't make me into something I'm not. I'm not your hero, Catherine. I'm just a man who got tired of looking away. Maybe that's what heroes are. People who refuse to look away." The temperature dropped as midnight passed, autumn chill seeping through the stone walls. Catherine shivered, her damp dress offering no protection. Without a word, Jake shrugged out of his worn jacket and draped it around her shoulders. It smelled like him, sage and leather and wood smoke. "You'll freeze," she protested. "I've been colder." His hand lingered on her shoulder, warm through the fabric. "Besides, if I'm hanging tomorrow, seems wasteful to worry about a chill." Catherine's throat tightened. Don't joke about it. What else can I do? Rage against it? Beg?" Jake's voice was soft but steady. "I made my choice, Catherine. I'd make it again. That girl gets to grow up, gets to be safe. That's worth the price." "But what about all the life you won't live? The things you'll never see or do or—" She stopped, emotions overwhelming her careful control. Jake cupped her face gently, his thumb brushing away a tear she hadn't realized had fallen. "Hey, look at me." When she did, his expression was tender, open in a way she suspected few people ever saw. "I've lived more in the last hour with you than in years of running. You gave me something real, Catherine. Don't cry for me." "I barely know you," she whispered, even as she leaned into his touch. This is insane." "Yeah," he smiled, and it transformed his harsh features into something almost beautiful. "But it's the best kind of insane. The kind that reminds you you're alive." Catherine didn't decide to kiss him. It simply happened, like thunder following lightning, inevitable and electric. Her lips met his softly, at first, tentative, asking permission. Jake made a sound low in his throat, his hands sliding into her hair as he deepened the kiss, answering her question with overwhelming yes. It was nothing like kissing Marcus, nothing like the dutiful, lifeless exchanges that had characterized her marriage. This was heat and hunger and something desperately alive. Jake kissed her like she was oxygen and he'd been drowning, like the world ended at dawn and they had to fit a lifetime into hours. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Jake rested his forehead against hers. "We should stop, should we?" Catherine's fingers traced the collar of his shirt, feeling his pulse racing beneath her touch. "You're vulnerable. I'm condemned. We shouldn't." He seemed to be convincing himself more than her. "I won't take advantage of you, Catherine, even if you're offering. I'm not offering out of pity or grief or vulnerability." She pulled back enough to meet his eyes. "I'm offering because for the first time in her name was a prayer and a warning. If we do this, if I touch you the way I want to, I don't know if I can face that rope in the morning. You'll make it too hard to let go." She kissed him again, softer this time, but no less certain. "Then we'll face it together, whatever comes with the dawn." They moved together in the darkness, careful and reverent, learning each other with gentle hands and whispered promises. Jake was patient, despite his obvious desire, pausing to make sure she wanted each touch, each step forward into intimacy. "Go slow," Catherine breathed against his neck as his calloused hands found the buttons of her dress. "It hurts to want something this much." "I'll die before I hurt you," Jake promised, his voice rough with emotion. His lips traced her collarbone, her shoulder, each touch feather-light and burning. "Tell me if you want me to stop, anytime, for any reason." But Catherine didn't want him to stop. She wanted to drown in this feeling, this moment of being cherished and seen and chosen. When their bodies finally joined, moving together in the oldest dance, it felt like coming home to a place she'd never been, like finding a missing piece of herself she hadn't known was lost. Afterward, they lay tangled together on the narrow bench, Jake's jacket spread beneath them and his shirt covering her bare shoulders. Catherine's head rested on his chest, listening to his heartbeat, strong and steady and alive. His hand traced patterns on her back, gentle circles that sent shivers through her. "I love you," Jake said into the darkness, his voice quiet but certain. "I know it's impossible and insane and I have no right. But I love you, Catherine Blake. And I need you to know that before—" She pressed her fingers to his lips, stopping the words. "Don't. Not yet. We still have hours before dawn." He kissed her fingers, then her palm, his eyes suspiciously bright in the lamplight. "Then tell me about the life you're going to live, after tomorrow. Tell me everything." So Catherine wove dreams into the darkness, a small clinic where she could practice medicine illegally but effectively. A horse ranch far from redemption, where the past couldn't find her. Books and freedom, and a life built on her own terms. Jake listened, occasionally adding details, painting her future with such vivid certainty that she almost believed it possible. "You'll be magnificent," he said as false dawn began to gray the windows. You'll heal people and build something real and be so goddamn free. I wish you could see it. Catherine's tears came freely now, no longer holdable. I wish we had more than this. We have exactly what we need. Jake held her tighter, his own breath hitching. We have this moment, this truth. Some people spend their whole lives never feeling this. We got it in one night. He tilted her face up, memorizing her features. Don't waste your life mourning me, Catherine. Promise me. Live big enough for both of us. I promise, she whispered, sealing it with a kiss that tasted of salt and sorrow and stubborn hope. The real dawn came too soon. Pink light spilling through the high window. Footsteps echoed on the boardwalk outside. The marshal returning. The town waking. The world moving toward its inevitable conclusion. Catherine began to dress, her hands shaking as she fastened buttons. Jake watched her, committing every movement to memory. When she reached for the cell door, he caught her hand. Wait, before you go, I need to know. Do you regret this? Any of it? Catherine turned back, cupping his scarred face in both hands. Not for a single second. You gave me myself back, Jake Thornton. You showed me what it means to be brave. She kissed him once more, soft and lingering. Thank you. Catherine, His voice broke. I'm not ready to let you go. Then don't. She squeezed his hands. Hold on to this. Hold on to me, and I'll hold on to you whatever comes next. Marshal Johnson's key scraped in the outer door. Catherine slipped out of the cell, closing it quietly behind her. She managed to return the keys to their hook and compose herself just as Johnson entered, looking haggard and angry. You're here early, he growled, suspicion evident. I couldn't sleep. Catherine's voice was steady, stronger than she'd ever heard it. Marshal, I need you to take me to Pale Moon before the hanging, as I requested last night. Mrs. Blake, now, Marshal, or I will ride out there myself and bring her back at gunpoint if necessary. Your choice. Something in her tone made Johnson reconsider his refusal. Perhaps he saw the steel beneath her mourning blacks, the transformation from proper widow to something fiercer. Fine, but you're making a fool's errand of yourself. The ride north took 30 minutes through cold morning air. Catherine's body ached from the night in the cell, every movement a reminder of Jake's touch. But her mind was clear and focused. When they reached the small dwelling near the Red Rock Canyon, an elderly Cheyenne woman emerged, her eyes wary. I'm looking for Pale Moon, Catherine said, sliding from her horse. I need to hear her story. The grandmother studied her for a long moment, then called into the dwelling in her native tongue. A girl emerged, thin, dark-haired, with bruises yellowing on her wrists, exactly as Jake had described. Her eyes widened with fear when she saw the marshal's badge. It's all right, Catherine said gently, stepping between them. I'm Catherine Blake. The sheriff was my husband. I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here to believe you. Pale Moon's English was halting but clear as she told her story. Marcus following her from town, grabbing her behind the saloon, his hands rough and cruel. The cowboy who'd appeared like an avenging angel, who'd given her his horse and told her to run. The gunshot behind her as she fled into the darkness. He saved you, Catherine said quietly, tears streaming down her face. Pale Moon nodded. The cowboy, he did not have to help, but he did. He is good man. She looked between Catherine and the marshal. They kill him? Not if I can help it. Catherine turned to Johnson, her voice like iron. You heard her. Jake Thornton defended this child from rape. My husband drew first. This is self-defense, not murder. The marshal's face was gray. Even if that's true, Marcus was still the sheriff. Thornton still killed a lawman. The town won't. The town will hear the truth. Catherine mounted her horse, new purpose burning through her grief. Every word, and then they'll decide if they want to hang a hero for protecting a child. They rode back to redemption as the sun climbed higher, death marching toward its appointed hour. Catherine could see the gallows in the town square, the noose swaying gently in the morning breeze, and the crowd gathering, bloodthirsty and eager for justice. "You can't stop this," Johnson said quietly as they neared the square. Even with her testimony, the judge, the mayor, they were all Marcus's friends. They'll never. "Then I'll burn this town's reputation to the ground." Catherine's eyes blazed. "I'll wire every newspaper from here to San Francisco. I'll stand on that platform and tell them who Marcus Blake really was. I'll make sure the name Redemption becomes synonymous with injustice." She dismounted before Johnson could respond, pushing through the crowd toward the gallows where Jake stood, hands bound, the noose already around his neck. His eyes found hers across the sea of faces, and something passed between them. Recognition, love, courage. "Wait!" Catherine's voice cut through the murmuring crowd. "This hanging is wrong. I have evidence, a witness. Jake Thornton didn't murder my husband. He defended an innocent girl from rape." The crowd erupted in angry protests. Judge Morrison, a portly man with impressive whiskers, banged his gavel. "Mrs. Blake, your grief has made you irrational. This man told me the truth when everyone else in this town lied to my face." Catherine climbed the gallows steps, standing between Jake and the executioner. "My husband was not the hero you all believe. He was a predator who used his badge to hide his crimes, and Jake Thornton stopped him." "She's right." Pale Mood's voice, small but clear, rose from where she stood with her grandmother at the crowd's edge. "The sheriff, he hurt me. This man saved me." Silence fell over the square, heavy and uncertain. Catherine saw faces in the crowd, women who wouldn't meet her eyes, men who shifted uncomfortably, the slow dawning of doubt. "Even if this is true," Morrison blustered, "Thornton still killed a lawman. The law is clear." "The law is also clear about rape and assault," Catherine interrupted. "Or does that not matter when the victim is Cheyenne? When the perpetrator is your friend?" Jake's voice, rough with emotion, joined hers. "I shot Marcus Blake in self-defense after he drew on me for stopping his attack on that girl. I don't regret it. I won't apologize. Hang me if you want, but at least let it be for what I actually did, protecting someone who couldn't protect herself." The crowd was fracturing, some calling for mercy, others for blood. Judge Morrison looked between Catherine, Jake, and the growing uncertainty in his carefully ordered world. "This is highly irregular. The trial is concluded. The sentence is wrong." Catherine's voice rang out, clear and uncompromising. "And if you hang this man, you'll be executing justice itself. You'll prove that this town values reputation over truth, comfort over righteousness." She turned to face the crowd, her black mourning dress a stark contrast to her blazing eyes. "Is that who we are? Is that what redemption means?" From the crowd, a woman's voice rose. Mrs. Henderson, the baker's wife. "Marcus, he looked at my daughter once, in a way that made my skin crawl. I never said anything because who would believe me?" Another voice, then another. Women sharing whispered suspicions they'd been too afraid to speak aloud. The careful facade of Marcus Blake's reputation cracking like thin ice. Judge Morrison's face purpled with rage or shame, or both. "This is a travesty. The trial cannot simply be over. Then call a new trial, Catherine said firmly, with all the evidence, with Pale Moon's testimony, with a jury that knows the whole truth, not just the comfortable lie. She looked at Jake, at the noose around his neck, at the morning sun climbing higher. Give him that much. Give us all that much. The silence stretched so long that Catherine thought her heart might stop. Then Judge Morrison, looking older and more tired than she'd ever seen him, nodded slowly. Very well. New trial. 1 week from today. He gestured to the executioner. You move the noose. Jake's knees nearly buckled as the rope was lifted from his neck. The marshal moved to return him to the cell, but Catherine stopped them with a raised hand. He's not a flight risk. I'll vouch for him. She met Johnson's gaze steadily. He's staying at my house until the trial. The scandal rippled through the crowd like wildfire, but Catherine didn't care. She'd already sacrificed her reputation, her comfortable lies, her place in this town's careful order. What was one more burning bridge? Jake looked at her with wonder and disbelief. Catherine, you don't have to. Yes, I do. She took his bound hands in hers, not caring who saw. You gave me truth. I'm giving you justice. We're in this together. Together, Jake repeated, the word like a vow. The week that followed transformed redemption. More women came forward with stories about Marcus Blake, uncomfortable encounters, inappropriate comments, moments they'd dismissed or buried. Pale Moon's grandmother shared that Marcus had been warned away from Cheyenne territory twice before for similar behavior. Evidence mounted like stones in a cairn, each one another nail in the coffin of a false legacy. Catherine sold Marcus's house, couldn't bear to stay in it another night. She and Jake stayed at the boarding house instead, in separate rooms for propriety's sake, though Catherine spent every evening in Jake's room, talking, planning, dreaming. They didn't touch beyond holding hands, both aware that the town's eyes were on them. But the connection between them deepened with every shared story, every quiet laugh, every moment of truth. Jake taught her to shoot, standing behind her in the field behind town, his hands guiding hers on the revolver's grip. Steady breath, clear sight, don't anticipate the kick. Catherine hit the target dead center, and Jake's whoop of pride made her laugh for the first time since before Marcus died. I'm a quick study. You're magnificent, he said, and kissed her temple softly. They talked about the future in conditional terms. If the trial went well, if the jury believed the truth, if they were given a chance. Jake spoke about the ranch he'd always wanted, somewhere in Montana or Wyoming, far from the past. Catherine shared her dream of the clinic, healing people without the restrictions of gender and propriety. We could do both, Jake said one evening, as they sat on the boarding house porch, watching the sunset paint the sky orange and gold. Ranch big enough for a clinic, space enough for both our dreams. You're talking like we have a future, Catherine said softly, afraid to hope too hard. Jake turned to her, his scarred face open and honest in the dying light. I'm talking like I want one, with you. If you'll have me, I'll have you. Catherine took his hand, lacing their fingers together. If they let us. The trial came with the turning of October, leaves falling like gold coins across Redemption's dusty streets. The courtroom packed with spectators, half hoping for vindication of their sheriff, half hungry for truth regardless of cost. Pale Moon testified first, her quiet voice steady as she recounted Marcus Blake's attack and Jake's intervention. Her grandmother corroborated the bruises, the torn dress, the blood. Catherine testified about the lies she'd been told, the evidence she'd uncovered, the man she'd married and never really known. When Jake took the stand, he spoke plainly and without embellishment. "I drew my gun to stop Sheriff Blake from raping that girl. He drew his gun to silence me. I shot him because I had no choice. I'd make the same choice again tomorrow and every day after. Some things are worth dying for. Protecting innocence is one of them." The prosecutor tried to paint him as a violent drifter, a killer using righteousness as an excuse. But the defense, a young lawyer from Denver who'd taken the case pro bono after reading Catherine's wire to the newspapers, systematically dismantled the prosecution's case with evidence, testimony, and righteous fury. "The only crime Jake Thornton committed," the lawyer said in his closing argument, "was being brave enough to do what every other man in this town was too afraid to do: hold a powerful man accountable for his crimes. If that's murder, then we should all pray to be such murderers." The jury deliberated for 3 hours. Catherine sat beside Jake in the courtroom, their hands clasped beneath the table, both of them afraid to breathe. When the foreman stood to deliver the verdict, time seemed to stop. "We find the defendant, Jake Thornton, not guilty of murder in the death of Marcus Blake. We further find his actions to be in defense of another person and therefore justified under the law." The courtroom erupted. Catherine buried her face in Jake's shoulder, sobs of relief shaking her whole body. His arms came around her, strong and steady, holding her together as the world reformed itself around them. "We're free," she whispered against his neck. "We're free," Jake echoed, his voice rough with emotion. "We're actually free." They married a week later, a simple ceremony at the small church at the edge of town. Pale Moon and her grandmother attended, along with Mrs. Henderson and a surprising number of other townspeople who'd come to see Catherine not as the sheriff's widow, but as a woman who'd chosen truth over comfort. Judge Morrison, humbled by his role in nearly hanging an innocent man, performed the ceremony. When he asked if anyone objected to the union, the church remained silent. When Jake slipped a simple gold band on Catherine's finger, his hands trembled. "I love you," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "I'll spend the rest of my life trying to deserve you." "You already do." Catherine kissed him, sealing the promise in front of God and everyone. They left Redemption the next morning, riding north toward Wyoming and the wide open future. Catherine wore riding pants instead of a dress, her dark hair loose down her back. Jake sat tall in the saddle beside her, his hand occasionally reaching out to make sure she was real. She was his. They were truly together. The ranch they found was small but sturdy, nestled in a valley with a creek running through it and mountains rising purple in the distance. Jake built an addition for Catherine's clinic while she studied medical texts by lamplight, teaching herself everything her gender had forbidden. Within a year, she was delivering babies and setting bones and treating illnesses for everyone within riding distance. Jake raised horses, beautiful, strong animals that carried miners and ranchers across the territory. They worked side by side, building something real from the ashes of false lives. Some nights, Catherine would wake from dreams of nooses and gallows, her heart racing. Jake would pull her close, his voice a rumble in the darkness. "I'm here. We're safe. We made it. We made it," she'd repeat, anchoring herself in the truth of his presence. 3 years after leaving Redemption, Pale Moon visited with her new husband, a Cheyenne warrior who looked at her like she hung the moon. She was pregnant, glowing with health and happiness, and she asked Catherine to deliver her baby when the time came. "You and Jake," Pale Moon said, her English much improved. "You gave me my life back. Let me share this new life with you." Catherine delivered Pale Moon's daughter on a snowy December night, Jake boiling water and holding lamps steady while Catherine guided the baby into the world. When the infant's cry filled the cabin, all four adults wept with joy. "What will you name her?" Catherine asked, carefully cleaning the baby before placing her in Pale Moon's arms. Pale Moon looked at her daughter, then at Catherine and Jake. "She will be called Truthbringer, because that is what you taught me, that truth is worth fighting for, even when the whole world calls it lies." Catherine looked at Jake across the room, their eyes meeting in understanding and love. They built this life on truth, painful, costly, necessary truth. And from that foundation grew something stronger than all the lies they'd left behind. Years passed. The ranch grew. Catherine's clinic treated hundreds, her reputation as a healer spreading far beyond their valley. Jake's horses became famous for their speed and endurance. They adopted 3 children, whose parents had died of illness or accident, giving them the family neither had known in their own childhoods. On their 10th anniversary, Jake took Catherine back to the spot where they'd first talked of futures and freedom, the field behind what had been redemption, now renamed New Hope, after a vote by reformed townspeople who dismantled the gallows and built a school in its place. "Do you ever regret it?" Jake asked, holding her close as the sun set over familiar mountains. "Giving up everything for a man you barely knew?" Catherine turned in his arms, her hands framing his beloved, scarred face. "I didn't give up everything for a man I barely knew. I claimed everything for a woman I'd never been allowed to be. You just happened to be brave enough to see her. I see you." Jake kissed her softly. "Every day I see you, and every day I'm grateful we stayed that night, that we chose truth." "Together," Catherine whispered, the words still a vow after all these years. "Together," Jake agreed, and kissed her again as the sky burned gold and the future stretched wide before them, built on the ashes of comfortable lies and the bedrock of hard-won truth. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I'd love to know where you're enjoying this tale from. Are you listening at home, during your commute, or perhaps while working? Please subscribe to the From Wild West channel and share your thoughts in the comments below. What did you think of Catherine and Jake's journey? Your feedback means the world to us.